Andre Karpathy built Tesla's autopilot and was a founding team member at OpenAI. Just said he's never felt this behind as a programmer. This is the Great Reset. Even the best programmers in the world don't know how to use this perfectly yet, which means right now is your chance to win the future economy. 4 people can now outpace teams of 40, and it's not just programming. The difference is Claude Code. Let me show you why. Naval Ravikant talks about leverage as labor, capital, and code. Alex Hormozi later expanded on this idea as the idea of labor, capital, code, and content. Leverage is the #1 reason why your go-to-market activities and honestly many of your fundamental business activities should move to Claude Code. The reason is because for the first time ever, labor/collaboration, capital, code, and content can all be united in one fundamental place. If you move all of these systems into Claude Code, they all feed off of each other, and your capital becomes how much money you can pour into your working environment. In many cases, capital is used to leverage up in positions and have capital work for you. However, I'm saying capital in the form of things like funding, right? But here's the thing. LLMs are getting so cheap that taste is the advantage. Taste is informed by code. Taste informs content. Taste can be shared collaboratively. And capital with LLMs can fuel all of them. And the best way to fuel all of them is Claude Code, because you can centralize your learning, much like centralizing a code base, into GitHub. The case for using Claude Code is ultimate leverage. And I think if you're an agency in 2026, this is the only way to scale a truly high ticket and valuable offer, especially on the go-to-market side of things. And the reason for this is because if you can create a centralized area for learning, right? GitHub, Supabase, raw data, human readable data, both accessible from Claude Code. You can inform every system that you have, including your CRM, which for me, our CRM is just stood up in ClickUp right now because I like less interfaces. Also, Claude Code gives you less interfaces. But what happens is because everything is sharing back and forth with GitHub, commit, pull, and you have your transcripts coming in and you have your platform data, in our case, email Bison, and you have data being shared across from Supabase that tells you how campaigns are going, what's working, what's not. You have your Slack channel where you're getting client, maybe even customer interactions fully documented and fleshed out. You have this absolute knowledge on your market that no one else can emulate. Knowledge becomes a moat because you can actually use the knowledge to do work. And on top of that, as you share code and share content, that content becomes instantly accessible by everyone else because you can just imagine duplicates of this Claude Code for each worker. And then not only is your taste scalable, your individual team members can begin contributing their own skills to make their taste scalable. I've honestly haven't been this excited since Clay came out, because what this means is that as you build out this ultimate system of leverage, you no longer have to start from scratch each time you engage with a new agency or a new employee. Your onboarding is wrapped in this. Your hiring is wrapped in this. Your content is wrapped in this. Your content is informed by what's working in your customer success from Slack. It's informed by what's working in your outbound channels. And then your content begins to inform your outbound channels based on what's working there. And then you add inbound-led outbound. And ultimately, you create this beautiful, beautiful place where GitHub contains your offer clarity, and you can push this outwards towards everything you need. You can have resonant ads. You just have to have an ad expert teach you one time how to do ads right once, and then deploy that into your Claude Code and expand that out. You're going to have the knowledge. You just need the system to deploy that knowledge through, right? And that becomes a skill. You don't even necessarily need it to have a person teach you. You can scrape ad libraries, find the winning formulas, and apply your clarity about your market to those winning ads. You can apply it to your newsletter. You can apply it to your outbound if you haven't already. One of the best ways to achieve this clarity. And then all of a sudden you can start deploying on-brand landing pages, but not just landing pages. You can deploy on-brand copy. You can make sure that it communicates your unique mechanisms, the things that make you a category of one. And then you can just continue to stack channels on top of each other without increasing the complexity too heavily of your go-to-market. And as you learn from these systems, they continue to feed and anneal one another. So that's why I think like having an interface like Claude Code that makes you basically ultimately powerful is one of the best things you can have. But the way I really want you to think about it is this idea of leverage, because you can have deterministic workflows, you can have content, which is creative, and each of your team members can create their own content persona and then apply the knowledge base to that content persona to make sure they're framing their unique perspectives and tastes on the content effectively. And then you can do things like write YouTube scripts, write video scripts, whatever you really want. And then you have people feeding off of each other. So they look at their content, what's performing. That informs future content. That content that's performant maybe informs a lead magnet that you try on your outbound process. And of course, you're still going to need creativity applied to the system. It makes the idea the only thing that you need to do. The moment you have an idea, you can work at the speed of thought, which is just ridiculous. And then as you get really good, you start to deploy more and more agentic processes off of this absolute knowledge system. Of course, you're going to get more technical and advanced the moment you start running stateful agents or stateless agents and, agentic loops that need to, self-anneal and run on cron hooks and be trigger based. But at your very basic level, you can use things like N8N and have it tap into, again, Supabase. Like if I were to add another line here, this Supabase can tap into N8N and be informed by everything that we're seeing in GitHub. So Claude Code can build with absolute knowledge of the way the system is supposed to exist ultimately. And to give you a quick example, I'll just run generate content, a little system I built inside of my Claude Code instance to show you how effective this can be. And so now we're in my Claude Code and I've just hit auto accept. All I've done is I've just said, hey, run the generate content system based off of the recent kickoff call transcript with a client. I wanted to run it just to show you guys, but also I think there's something like a really interesting topic that was shared on that call that maybe will get pulled out. And this is by no means a perfect system, but basically what it does is it actually gets the transcript from Fireflies. Then it extracts the content and briefs out content based on the types of content that could be related to my service or my personal brand. And then what it does is it goes ahead and extracts like content briefs from that. It writes drafts for top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. And then it runs an editor through it to edit for my brand voice. And the thing it's actually missing now, for some reason, it kind of knocked it out, is the library of really good posts that I gave it. So that needs to be updated. But I'm not too concerned about getting this updated this second. So no worries there, but I will make note of that. Update content system. And basically what is happening here is that it's prepping everything and then it actually presents for review before pushing directly to Typefully. And optionally, you can actually generate a carousel for bottom of funnel posts using Gamma. For me, I don't like the way Gamma is doing carousels right now, but it's still pretty cool, right? Like it's still pretty darn cool. And so this simple skill file just basically goes through, needs to be updated. It doesn't have the best, it does have YAML front matter. Perfect. So it does have YAML front matter. It needs to be updated in a few ways. Like it needs to maybe have a better discernment for what posts to pull and what topics to pull. But you can see here it's writing drafts. Maybe it can deploy sub agents to do the writing to be a bit more efficient in terms of time, right? So that could be a thing. Maybe I want to do this via API calls and do some web research as well. There's a lot of different ways I can improve this system, but because I have the knowledge in here, the system becomes much easier to write and I can easily update the system with new knowledge. So I can say, look, I've just added a document that I would like to be available to the content writer or niche worldview checker, and it should be adapted and embedded as optional piece of content during the copywriting process if the topic involves any of these things. And then it can go through like things like stealth offer and situation mining. In other ways, like if a topic gets brought up that matches one of the common skills that we use, I could just say that like, you should just look at the skill we use and describe the skill for people to use and steal, basically. Like we can just turn skills into content, right? It doesn't have to always come from a transcript. And then you could also add a system that monitors the best posts in your niche based on keyword, not too hard to set up, run that through N8N. And then you could have a webhook that you call upon to potentially pull that data in, for instance. You could pull that data in and then you could turn those good posts and run it through your content system. So you can see here that by setting up like a skill once, make it so you have infinite Claude projects to access. But now I could just share this with my team and have them with all of this knowledge create similar things, right? So what do we have here? They're running A/B tests. Here's the thing, personalization if your process can't buy. We have a client right now selling content. Tactical guide, worldview alignment. There's stack it for personalized marketing managers. Want to change? Start reaching out founders. Post 10 to 20 blogs. Pitch. I know you believe in content. Yours get 3 more creating 50% close rate. 70K at 1 month from outbound. The difference doesn't buy a copy is worldview alignment. When you speak to investments they're already making and position your offer as enhancing those investments, it's not a cold pitch anymore. It's a logical next step. Here's how to find worldview alignment. Look for visible investments. Connect your offer to what they're already doing. Frame as enhancement, not replacement. This is pretty darn close to exactly how I think about this. And the reason for that, and it could be way better. The reason it's not way better is because I just haven't added all of the knowledge to my system yet. But I will tell you this, if you want to get started with Claude Code and get this type of stuff set up, the first thing you need to do, and I may do an entire video on this, is just have Claude interview you on your business. I'm going to give it that huge Miro board to just analyze in chunks. And then I'm going to say, interview me on all my business processes, find the gaps. And it's going to get everything in my tonality. I'm going to say, keep my tonality. Spend forever being interviewed and setting up your knowledge system. Focus on making sure you have a file hierarchy. Like mine is not perfect. This is still being worked on, but focus on making sure you can see here. I can just say push to typefully for any of them that are approved. Focus on making sure you have a file hierarchy that meets what you want. Basically be organized in a way that matches how you would speak, right? Like if I'm the type of person to say grab a transcript versus fetch, your skill should be called grab transcript. The second thing is that you want to focus on foundational understandings of AI. Do not just hop on someone else's system. It's not going to work for you. The whole thing is about taste. Operate in a system that makes sense for you. I personally want to use Claude Skills because it's open source and it makes it easy for me to learn from other people as a point of reference, not as an imitation. And number two, you want to go off foundational studies. For instance, the study about having a round table to review your outputs. They managed to do a 1,000,000-step workflow by having a round table to review all of the outputs with a stupid model. 4.1 mini was the model they used most successfully, and they had 8 models vote on each step's outcome. And it managed to get over 1,000,000 steps without making a mistake. That is freaking insane, right? So that is foundational knowledge you can apply to anything. Focus on the foundational knowledge. Focus on what I like to say. You can see here, we have Musashi here. Focus on one thing from 10,000 things. That's so funny. That's literally right here. Exact thing I'm talking about. You want one skill that is applicable to 10,000 different things, okay? So if you focus on foundational knowledge, you'll get that. The number one thing you need to optimize for is for surfaceability with plain language. So when you make a prompt in plain language, it should be simple to identify by, like, your file system should make things simple to surface and take action upon. Same with your scripts, same with your really just everything. And then you want this system to sync with GitHub so that you can share it to other places very systematically and easily. You have an open knowledge source that can be plugged into from different operating systems, right? Number 3, focus on context management. The best skill you can learn is how to prompt well and how to deliver context sequentially. Make sure you have YAML front matter in your documents. I mentioned that earlier on. And really just make sure you build the system to both be human and AI navigable. AI will use YAML. You will use the general terms. Both combined will make for the best system you can have, in my opinion. Like I said, I'm still learning, but those are kind of foundational tips. Make sure you're always focusing on foundational understanding, and Claude Code will be something you'll find success with, I'm sure.